This is Pat Henry, What They Think, and with me today to talk about the market for UV technology are Greg Heimbuch and Michael Bates. Greg and Mike are partners in the firm GMH UV, which is based in Arvada, Colorado. Greg, let's please start with you. GMH UV is the official North American distributor of sheet-fed offset UV curing systems from GEW, a leading supplier of UV curing systems based in the UK. How long has that relationship been in effect, and how did it come about?
The relationship has been in effect actually about 3 years, right around now. We were working for another manufacturer. GEW was looking for someone to represent their product in North America. We met with them, realized, that they had a great product, great service, great support, great people. And the timing was impeccable. It was a marriage made in heaven.
Michael, how has that relationship helped your respective companies to grow the market for UV curing systems in North America?
I would say that initially GW didn't have any type of, they had a small presence in the sheet-fed market, but not very established. So what has worked out with us and them is that we have a ton of experience. I don't know how many years in the industry, Greg, I have combined. I hate to add that up, but it's many decades. So from our previous experience with AMS and moving forward with GW, we were able to bring the sheet-fed market to them and then bring an excellent product and technology to us. And it was, as Greg alluded to, it was a marriage made in heaven, really.
Please talk about the market segments or the print market segments that you address and how your product offerings support those markets.
The GEW product is interesting in that it's kind of forward-looking, unlike most of the products in the marketplace. In the past, it's always been you either put UV or you put LED on a press. With the GEW ArcLid technology, what we're able to do is put UV on the press or put LED on the press with a casing that holds the lamp, whether it's UV or LED. And the customer, if they're so inclined, can go back and forth from LED to UV without really making any other changes in their press structure or power supplies or anything like that. So it's really a unique product offering that, frankly, has given us real strong representation in the OEM market and sheet fed in North America, and it allows us to go into the retrofit market and allow people not to have to make that UV or LED decision today when they're not ready to make it.
I want to come back to both ARC LED and the retrofit market. Michael, if you could talk in a little bit more detail about, which segments of the market that your products are covering. I believe you're pretty well represented in narrow web for labels, other segments as well.
Correct. We have agreed with GW, GMH, and GW that we would handle the sheet-fed segment from 52 centimeters up to 205 centimeters. Also, the large format web, I would say from 100 centimeters up to 200 centimeters or whatever it might be. So we have several projects in the 57-inch web format that we're working on and have done. So we handle those segments. Anything below, let's just say anything below 36 inches or 38 inches is left to GW and their current sales group.
Okay, so between the two of you, you've got the gamut of printing widths covered from small to VLF.
Correct.
Let's go back, if we could, to ARC LED. I think I understand how that works. I can have conventional ARC lamps or LED arrays in the same cassette in any curing position on the press that I want. Can you go into a little bit more technical detail about how that works, and why is that a desirable feature for me to have?
Well, technically, it's fairly simple. And Patrick, one of the things that you have to know, it doesn't fit on all presses, because what we are doing is we're putting a casing in between the units or in the end of press location, depending on where you're curing. It does in most, but it doesn't in all. So we put a casing there, and that casing is permanent. and allows us to slide either a UV or an LED lamp into that location, depending on what the customer need is. Why is it important? Well, today, most customers, when they're buying curing technologies for presses, want to put LED on the units because it's cleaner, it doesn't produce as much heat, and it gives the output a great look, and it's cured off the end of the press. And it's environmentally much safer. You don't have to vent to the outside, those types of things. Most customers today, because the coating technology isn't as far along as maybe we would like it, are purchasing traditional UV for end of press. So you have LED on the units and UV at the end of press. Well, we can basically take those technologies and intermingle them as we want, based with the ArcLED technology. So it's very forward-looking. It allows customers, if they want to put UV on the units today, and we can fit the ArcLED casings in the units. 2 years from now, if they say, you know what, we really need to go to LED, our customers are telling us we need to go that way, we don't have to do that forklift upgrade where we take everything off the press and put a new system on. We can simply supply them with new cassettes.
Also with LED, there is no heat. It's very sustainable. So if we have traditional UV, mercury vapor, you have to dispose of lamps, bulbs, that's mercury filament. Not all are mercury, but there's some type of iron doped or some other type of metal that's inside those bulbs. So what we want to do is always make sure that we're looking from a sustainable advantage. And LED is completely sustainable that way. There's no moving parts. There's no heat being generated. There's no ozone being generated. So what we're finding is, 10 years ago, we didn't have the industry moving towards that technology. It was new and young. So at this point now, we're getting the majority of what the inquiries are is moving to LED technology to support that sustainable growth within their organizations.
I think that leads us to the next question. We know that GEW supplies many of the UV systems that the leading offset press OEMs bundle with their new equipment, but as we know, there's a very large installed base of older printing machinery out there that could be retrofitted for UV and all the benefits that it would bring. How can you help the owners of that older equipment make that happen?
I think Greg mentioned earlier that not all presses can be retrofitted. So there's a certain amount of UV preparation that's involved on a retrofit machine, and there's got to be a certain amount of room available to us. We've done machines in the mid-90s all the way up to the current date today. What we want to do is make sure that there's availability, there's protection. If you do an as Greg alluded to earlier, if you use an end-of-press mercury vapor to cure coatings, you want to make sure that you have water-cooled pans throughout the machine, which that's part of the retrofit. At some point when these were manufactured, there was none of that technology available to that particular machine. So we have to add quite a few things to prepare these machines to get ready for UV and not so much LED. So LED is not an exorbitant amount of heat. In that case, we don't have to shield lines. We don't have to have a water-cooled pan in the delivery. So it's a much more seamless installation. But again, we still have to have the room in between the units of the machine and at the end of the press to retrofit a machine. So I guess what I'm saying here is not every machine is capable of being retrofitted. It really depends on the year and the type of machine.
And Patrick, that's really part of the process. And that's one of the great things about our experience and GEW's experience is that we can go into these printers that have machines that are older, that they want to maybe get a few more years life out of them by adding curing technology. And we can go in and really kind of do an evaluation of it and tell them pointedly, hey, yeah, we could do this, or it's really not doable on this type of press, this style of press. So and that's one of the great things about the relationship between GMH UV and GEW is they have great experience with the curing technologies, and Mike and I have, pretty darn good experience in the commercial space. So we really complement each other very well in that.
I would also add this, Patrick. If there's companies out there that have perfecting machines that they're putting impression cylinder jackets on. They think this machine has run its course.
Yeah.
LED is the perfect installation for them to rejuvenate that machine. Okay, we can put a lamp at the perfecting unit, a lamp at the end of the 8th, 10th unit, and reinvigorate that machine, really, because now all of those things that they've dealt with in the past, jackets, impression cylinder jackets, all these things are now obsolete because we're putting a dry sheet through that machine. So those perfectors have a longer life than I believe a lot of people realize, and unless they're familiar with UV, the UV technologies that are available to them.
So with the curing, I eliminate marking at the perfecting stage.
Correct.
All right. Well, I think as you said at the beginning, the relationship between your field experience and GEW's expertise in the technology is a marriage made in heaven, and I want to thank you for sharing that with us today.
Thank you, Patrick. I want to, if I could,
Sure.
I just want to acknowledge Hans Euland, our former partner who's no longer with us. We miss him dearly. His vision was instrumental in putting this partnership together, and we'll always think about him in the industry and as a dear, dear friend to both Greg and I.
Yeah, thank you for that. Anyone who's acquainted with UV technology was acquainted in some way or another with Mr. Ulan. So, as you say, he is very much missed. Well, I want to thank our guests today, Greg Heimbuch and Michael Bates of GMH UV, for a great discussion. And I would also like to thank our sponsoring partner, GEW. This is Pat Henry, What They Think. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.